So it is pretty much a guarantee that Arman Tsarukyan is next when it comes to fighting for the UFC lightweight title after Dustin Poirier. Now, almost everybody thinks unanimously that Islam Makhachev is going to defeat Dustin Poirier. Now, Dustin Poirier said himself he's probably going to jump guillotines, which leads me to believe that Islam Makhachev is going to get it done. If Poirier does somehow get it done, either way, Arman Tsarukyan's probably going to be next. Maybe Islam fights for a rematch. I don't know. But the reality is I don't see a scenario where Islam loses that fight. Now, with Arman Tsarukyan, he said that the big mistake that he made during his fight with Islam Makhachev was the fact that he tried to wrestle and grapple with Islam Makhachev. And frankly, he had the best fight against Islam Makhachev out of anybody up to the point of, I would say, Alexander Volkanovski the first time they fought. He gave Islam his toughest test up until that point. There's a guy that caught him right in the beginning, but after that, no chance. So his game plan is to stay away from the fence. His game plan is to stand up and strike with Islam. And hopefully by doing this, he's going to be able to emerge victorious with the UFC belt. Now, what I will say is that I feel like this is a little bit of a stretch for Arman Tsarukyan. Now, he's young, and I think that he definitely has the potential to be a champion one day. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But if we do a little bit of MMA math, and they always say MMA math doesn't work, he just fought Charles Olivera in what was a very close split decision fight. And there was some news in the fact that the judge apologized to Arman for giving Charles the decision, the judge who thought it went in favor of Charles. But either way, it was still a relatively close fight. Charles clearly won round one. Clearly round two was to Tsarukyan. Round three, I would say, is mostly Tsarukyan winning against Charles, but there were submission attempts, and the fight ended with him in a submission attempt. I think it was an attempt at a Darce choke. And so, obviously, one judge scored that round in favor of Charles. And although I thought the right guy got the nod, Arman Tsarukyan, I thought, won that fight. He did the most damage. It was a close fight. Whereas if you compare that to the fight that Charles Olivera had with Islam Makhachev, this was a couple of years ago, by the way, I'm assuming all parties have gotten better. Islam Makhachev beat him in every single position, in every single battle, in every single moment of that fight. Islam Makhachev beat him on the feet, he beat him on the ground, he beat him in the clinch, he beat him up against the cage. There wasn't anywhere that Charles was in that fight where he was superior to Islam. Compare that to his fight with Arman Tsarukyan, it was just some advantages sort of thing. In grappling and submission attempts, that sort of thing. Now the question is, how do we think Islam Makhachev is going to deal with Arman Tsarukyan if he executes his game plan and makes this a stand-up only fight? Now again, that is a tall order for anybody in the UFC to keep the fight on the feet against Islam Makhachev. But Islam Makhachev has some incredible striking. He is hard to hit. And what we saw against Volkanovski in their first fight, it was a very close match. But we saw in the most recent one on short notice, he didn't stand a chance. So, and we got some news that Islam Makhachev turned down a short notice fight with Arman Tsarukyan, and Tsarukyan turned down the short notice fight with Islam. I don't know who to believe. I don't know sort of what the actual truth behind that is, but absolutely it makes the most sense for all parties involved to do a full camp to prepare as best they can for each other so that if and when they do fight, it's like a legitimate fight and there's no built-in excuses, right? If Islam wins, he's better. He's the champion. If Arman Tsarukyan pulls it off, he's better. He's the champion, right? We don't want a situation where it's on 2 months notice, short notice, a few weeks, this, that, the other. And then we have sort of a built-in excuse. If you made it this far, by the way, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps grow the channel. So overall, I think that, first of all, in my opinion, he's one of the best in the light division. And the rankings show that, right? He's the #1 contender, literally. But I just don't know if it's enough, right? If he plans to keep the fight on the feet, Islam Makhachev is very hard to hit. He's got some great striking. I believe his striking coach is a former Olympic medalist in Taekwondo, especially when it comes to all of his kicks. He's good in the clinch. He's good with judo trips, all these other kind of things. So it's not just going to be straight wrestling. You know what I mean? And actually, like leading up to that fight with Olivera, I was watching Faraz Zahabi's channel, and he basically said the difference maker in this fight is going to be in the clinch. Islam Makhachev is going to have a bunch of like judo trips and different things like that that he's going to be able to use to get the fight to the ground against Charles, and he's not going to be afraid to follow him there, right? So, and if we look at it, Charles in the fight with Tsarukyan had the more dangerous submission attempts from the looks of it. Now, Tsarukyan managed to kind of get out of everything, stay calm, stay composed. In fact, I thought that guillotine, he was done. I was so convinced that he was going to go out, but he got out of it, which was like, that was incredible. So, if Islam puts that squeeze on him, he's probably either getting out of it or going to sleep, right? But yeah, it's crazy to me how so many fans are kind of jumping on Tsarukyan's bandwagon just as a way to defeat the Dagestani dominance, right? To defeat Islam Makhachev, because they don't like those guys, right? They don't like Khabib, they don't like Islam, they don't like any of them because they think the fights are boring, which is kind of crazy to me because Islam won his last fight by a head kick knockout. So how is that boring? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But anyway, my whole point is, and I want to ask you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Arman Tsarukyan's sort of game plan, what he's disclosed to people that he plans on doing, which is he's not going to try to grapple with Islam, he's not going to try to wrestle with Islam, which is what he did in the first fight. Instead, he's going to try to keep it off the fence and stand and strike with Islam. Do you think that is the path to victory for Arman Tsarukyan? I don't know what the answer to that question is. What I do know is that Islam Makhachev's hard to hit. He won his last fight by KO. Arman Tsarukyan gave Islam probably his toughest challenge up to the first Volkanovski fight because he was grappling heavy in his approach from Islam Makhachev, the way he did with Charles. If we do the MMA math, it looks as though Islam is still going to be the guy to hold that belt, no matter who fights him in the lightweight division. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.